Here we go, we're on. Technology's working. Welcome to my study with the product placement of lovely dashboard Jesus. Yes, he does actually walk. I should show his dashboard. I'm going to show you around my study. There we go. I put
oh, fantastic. Where did you get him from?
He is always, I got him from a friend. About when I first got ordained, a friend sent me a bobbly Jesus and said, you're going to need it. Jesus is always watching. There he is. Ade, it's great to have you in my study in this slightly odd online way of being together, and I really love it. It's great to meet you properly rather than a tiny avatar on Facebook. So thank you for being here. Let's start with kind of a who are you, what's your role normally in life, and what's your situation in your household? Off you go.
Okay, so my name is Ade. I'm a priest, 15 years ordained, and I am based in the southeast of England in Rochester in Kent, and I work at Rochester Cathedral part-time. I also am an associate priest in the Rochester cluster, and I am a chaplain at a sheltered accommodation called the French Hospital, plus some other bits and pieces.
You're a busy lady. How do you put all that into the average day? Do you have
with difficulty?
What do you do for fun? I mean, have you time for fun?
What do I do for fun? Well, I watch TV. Well, I'll tell you what I tend to do. At the end of the day, I tend to watch football. I love watching sports, and I tend to watch recorded matches or a match on the TV. Awesome. Now, I don't understand much about football, but I just love watching it. Go figure.
I think that's brilliant. And how about home life? Do you have people with you, or you're on your own? And how's that been?
I live by myself. I'm happily content living by myself, but as I've found out with various places that I've lived, I tend to rattle around the vicarage, because vicarages were built for families and not taken into consideration that a person one day will be by themselves and not with a husband and 2.4 kids. So I rattle around where I am, but I'm grateful that it's a nice place. It's warm, it's cozy, it's comfy, and it's watertight. So
Which can't be said of all vicarages, can they?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I must admit the radiators are a bit wonky here. So
they could be worse.
They could be worse.
So when COVID first came on the scene, I suppose in the public's mind, really kind of February, March time, and people were starting to get this sense of things were about to change. Many of us who live in a household or have underlying conditions which indicated to us, common sense wise, this is going to be more for us than for most people. I guess we kind of saw what we now call shielding coming, and they have been thinking about that kind of restriction even as lockdown began to approach. So what was your inkling, what was your journey at that point, and what led to you becoming a shielded person?
Well, I have underlying health conditions and I'm immunocompromised. And when the talk of shielding emerged, I kind of thought to myself, I think I fit within one of the categories, but nothing specific was coming out as such. And the government issued a list, and I thought to myself, I think I fit within the category, because there was a specific category for people who were immunocompromised. And so I was getting myself worked up about it. Do I shield? Do I not? What happens? And I needed someone to tell me what's going on. So I phoned my doctor's surgery, and I said, look, this is going on. I need to know whether I should shield or not. And the receptionist took a look at my records and said that it's got marked in my records that I'm at extremely high risk of serious illness if I catch COVID, and that I should be shielding. A letter will be coming shortly. And true to form, about 4 or 5 days later, something like that, a letter came, and it was frightened is not quite the word, but I was taken aback seeing it in black and white, that this is going to happen if you don't stay at home. And I thought to myself, I don't need to be told twice. I'm not I'm not going anywhere. So I haven't been beyond the boundary of my doorstep since that time. The only time I go out is to take the rubbish out.
Sure, and that's it. So how are you doing for things like food and basic requirements?
At first, it was a bit hit and miss. A neighbour put a paper through the door saying, we live at number such and such, and we're quite happy to go and get bits of shopping for you. And a couple of times I used this neighbour, but it occurred to me that that's not going to be sufficient for me to get a weekly shop. And so I thought to myself, what am I going to do? Tesco's weren't very good at the time of having slots for people.
It took
and
them
I
a
found
while
I
to
was
catch
having,
up, didn't it? Yeah.
It took quite a while to catch up, but bless them, they did it. And I was a bit fed up of waiting till midnight to try and scramble for a slot. So I then did a shout out on Facebook, and lots of people came to the rescue saying, why don't you do this? I'll help you. I'll get stuff, whatever. And so I chose a couple that live fairly near me to get bits and pieces. But again, it wasn't really helping with the big shop.
Sure.
So I persevered for a bit. I was getting food parcels from the government, and which is a whole other area in and of itself, because I found I was getting carrots every week and potatoes and bread. Anyway, let's just say, bless them, they were generous with that. So that carried me for a little bit until I could get a regular slot at Tesco's. Also, I should say, a mutual aid charity dropped a letter through the door, and I wasn't quite sure if it was legit or not. And because apparently there was lots of scams going on with the onset of COVID, so I wasn't quite sure. And so I called up because I needed someone to go to the post office and get a few bits for me. And they were legit. They're a bunch of people in the area who've come together who just want to help out.
Brilliant.
And I thought, bless them. So I've been using them as well. I think I've used them twice. Yeah, so things have worked out as time has gone along.
It's a bit weird as a priest, and I'm generalising here, but I think this is a narrative I hear amongst a lot of priests generally, is that as a priest, there's an expectation that we are the ones who do the helping. We are the ones who are strong, who are invincible, who are capable. We are the ones who offer the help. And actually, when you're a shielding priest, those roles are reversed. And if your personality is one of, I don't like asking for help, and the priestly voice in your ear says, you shouldn't be asking for help, you should be out there helping, there can be a real pressure to not ask for help, or to to mitigate the risks and say maybe I should be out there, and maybe a feeling of guilt. Have you had any of that in your experience?
Well, yes, I have, to be honest. The priest in me is saying you should be out there helping. My role isn't a traditional parish role. So when lockdown happened, I went from busy to virtually nothing. And all my contemporaries are gearing up to another level of ministry in the parish. And I felt quite useless. It's something that still upsets me, to be honest.
Yeah.
I felt quite useless. And I rang round a couple of places to say, do you need any help? I'm available. Do you need any help? I never did get a reply back. And it just so happens I've been able to have a little bit of a phone ministry as a chaplain. So I do a newsletter and send that in, and anybody that wants a phone call, I'll phone them. And then through the cathedral, they've generated a list of people, and I phone them from time to time as well. So at least I felt I was putting something into the general effort of things. I don't like asking for help because I'm quite independent, but I had to get over myself because there was nothing I could do. I needed the help, and there was no other way of getting around it. So was it pride? I guess so, a bit of it. And so I just went ahead and asked for help. I made sure I was courteous and said please and thank you. And yeah, the help has come and has been all right.
Oh. And here's a quite a tough question, or maybe an easy one. I don't know. It depends on your perspective. God, in the midst of all this, when we are busy out there, priests, it's quite easy to assume a godly presence, because that's what we do, and we take God everywhere, and we go everywhere with God. There is a danger of becoming the professional Christian, but that's a whole other conversation. Whereas lockdown and enforced solitude, and this is why I guess hermits go off to caves to go and strip away everything and just be them, and hope that God turns up. So I guess this is kind of almost an enforced solitude, and enforced you have to be with yourself, and then where's God? So for you, where has God been close or far away or non-existent or in your face in this whole kind of lockdown experience?
Well, to answer that question, I have to go back in time a little bit. My mother died in December 2019, and it catapulted me into a prayerlessness. And with the lockdown, that made me very disorientated, and the prayerlessness was even worse. But after about a week, I thought to myself, I can't go on like this forever. I need to do something about it. So I did myself a timetable, and that catapulted me back into some sort of rhythm. Now, by doing that, I found myself free in some sort of way to start praying again. So much so that I'm praying even more than I used to. Now, to come back to your comment, I find that because I live by myself, solitude isn't a problem. So people would say to me, how are you finding being on your own? And I would say to them, well, it's more of the same. It's just that this time it's more intense.
Yes.
There was an intensity in the atmosphere that was hard to ignore. But I know that God is with me because God to me is a very faithful God. He's very gracious. And to me, God is a God of grace. He's always given me graces. And so in all that time, I wasn't praying. God has been with me. In the time I have been praying, God has been with me. And so he's never left. But it was nice to be in that position of praying again.
Sure.
So yeah, the intensity, yeah, I'm kind of used to that now as time has gone on. And the prayerfulness is still there. I guess the hard thing for me will be, once lockdown is finished, is going back to normal, whatever normal is, and not being able to commit to as much time to praying as I do.
Sure. Interesting. Lessons learned from lockdown.
Yeah,
Some of the clergy I've been talking to who are shielders, and some
yeah,
folks who are shielding generally, and therefore not able to be in a workplace as they were before, have expressed a feeling of, I guess, being left behind.
yes,
Certainly, as lockdown progressed. So at the beginning, we were all in it together. And
yeah.
everyone really had the same experience of don't go out unless you absolutely have to. But then as time has progressed and lockdown began to lift itself a little bit, and then government policy kind of caught up with what was going on outside our front doors, and gradually there's been a kind of an erosion or a letting go of the restrictions. And it feels to some people like we were all in together here, nice and close, but now actually that's stretching out a bit, and a lot of people are way further ahead in terms of picking up an outside life. And actually the back of the queue for answers or support or even being noticed are those shielding, and within a Church of England structure, clergy shielders. Do you experience that? Do you feel that's right, that we're kind of at the back and we're missing?
In the bigger scheme of things, I don't think we're missing anything, because at the end of the day, COVID can kill you. And that's the bottom line, really. So there's no hurry in this. It's best to wait until the danger has passed completely before getting out there. Um, I'm no government analyst or anything, but I'm pretty well convinced that the government have been a bit hasty in easing the lockdown, and things are still, in my mind, not settled, and far from being the free for all it's turning out to be. So I don't feel as if I'm left behind, in terms of people being free to go out and do what they want to do. I do wish that I could go out and have that freedom to walk around the block, but I'm quite content staying at home until the danger is past. There's no hurry in this situation the nation finds themselves in. And after all, if Scotland is still shielding till the 31st of July, well, there you go.
There's a big lesson there, isn't there? If we're
There's a
willing
big lesson there. So yeah,
stay put.
but I can understand if people feel that way, because they're outgoing people, they like being out. I'm quite a home person. Yeah.
Stay put for the time being.
Yeah. Stay put for the time being. Yeah.
So
Find things to do.
do you have any top tips for other shielders out there who maybe are feeling a bit alone, a bit overlooked, a bit isolated, a bit unnoticed, and who are thinking that they're on their own and what can they do? What would your top tips be for them?
Right. I would say the number one thing is, because it works, is get yourself a timetable, plan your day. And it's not hard and fast, but at least you've got some sort of structure to your day. and it will give you over time a sense of rhythm. Now, if you are, as I find, continually behind time, because I I oversleep all the time, but I still keep to that rhythm of being in the office, doing some work, answering emails, not watching TV during the day. I try and stay away from it now.
Being off Twitter and Facebook as much as you can.
No, definitely not. I'm on Twitter and Facebook far too much at my desk. The other thing I would say is find yourself a project to do. Now, there's two things I'm doing. One is I'm decluttering.
Ah,
I'm on a course to declutter.
okay.
And so that gives me something to think about and do.
Yeah.
So every week, the course takes us to a particular room in the house and you declutter it. And you're in a Facebook group with other people doing the same thing. Okay. And it helps you just go ahead and do the job. So my kitchen looks completely different to what it was before. I mean, it's fantastic.
You can come and do mine.
And the other thing is going to be booking myself on an online vegan cookery course.
Oh, okay.
Because I've turned vegan during the lockdown.
Cheaper, isn't it? Apart from the carrots you get in the government box.
Yeah. And so that will keep me occupied. I guess what I'm trying to say is get yourself a project that can take your mind off things, that can occupy you.
Something about having a purpose to get up out of bed in the morning rather than just there's no point, I'll stay here.
Yes, that's right. I'll just lounge around. I'll just let the news get to me and stuff like that. Yeah. The other thing I would say is eat regularly and eat well. Yeah. Don't graze. If you graze, you might graze on carrots, but that's another way to use that government box.
We had 2 bags of pears in ours. I'm like, pears? I don't even like pears. What are you doing with these pears? Yeah, but yeah, not grazing. That's one of my biggest things is I sit and eat when I'm bored.
Yeah, don't graze. Stick to your meals. Yeah. Drink plenty of fluids, and try and maintain a healthy lifestyle while indoors. The other thing that I've done is I got a personal trainer and I do exercise in my living room 3 times a week. Yeah. And so get yourself a personal trainer and do some exercise. If not, go to YouTube and put in 20-minute workout beginners, and you'll get all sorts of clips for exercise to do in your living room. And it's fantastic.
Yeah, my son, who is built like a string bean in the first place, so he eats all day and there's nothing to him. I don't know how he manages it. He does Joe Wicks at 9 o'clock on a weekday morning, and he absolutely loves it. And it's because no one can see you, he can opt in and out of the exercises, if you know what I mean. But and we bought I've got cerebral palsy, so I use crutches to walk with. So for me, exercise and I don't really get on generally. It reminds me of physio too much and triggers. But we, beginning of lockdown, used a bit of money we had left from something else and bought an exercise bike. So I go on that every morning just to get my lazy backside off the sofa.
That's right, yeah.
Something that, because we can't go out beyond our doors, it gets you moving in some way. So yeah, and trying to eat regularly and sensibly is.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the eating regularly and sensibly, might be a bit hit and miss for people. You're forgiven, my child.
Thank you, darling. Oh man, but yeah, both of the men
So
in my
yeah,
life eat like a pig. They eat crisps and biscuits, and they're just like string beans. And I'm like, life is so unfair. I can't.
I had to give up my one true love, cashew nuts. I love cashew nuts. And when I realized how many calories they were per 100 grams
They
and
are
how
evil.
much fat are in them, I
Mm.
had to give them up because I'm trying to lose weight, not gain weight. And
Yeah.
so so I had to give them up, unfortunately.
Yeah, my husband's a kidney transplant patient, so that's why we're
Mm,
shielding for him. And
yes.
one of the things about now, he's got different levels he has to watch out for, but I think it's phosphate he has to be careful with. And so they keep saying to him, eat more nuts, eat more nuts. I'm like, don't buy any more nuts. I will eat them. And that's no waistline. Put them in a really high cupboard where I can't reach. Deary me. Now on that nutty bombshell, we're gonna call it quits. Ade, thank you
Yes.
so much for being one of my lovely interviewees.